Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are actually talking about virtual terrorism because that's apparently a real thing. Now, here's what's going on. This is coming from Euronews and the AFP, and again, I apologize, I'm still under the weather, but let's dive right in here before I completely die on you on camera. Now, here's what's going on. A Russian teenager has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for allegedly planning to blow up a virtual building of the Russian FSB security service that was created in the computer game Minecraft. That's right, we're not talking about a physical brick and mortar building, but a building in a game, Minecraft, where you get to build things. Now, the suspect here that was just convicted is Nikita Uvarov. He's aged 16, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison by a Siberian military court for, quote, training for terrorist activities. And that is according to the rights lawyer for him, Pavel Chikov, talking on Telegram to, again, Euronews and the AFP. Now, two other defendants with Mr. Uvarov, were cleared of criminal charges and handed suspended sentences because apparently they cooperated with investigators. Now, the hearing was held behind closed doors, which is very common in Russia. Uvarov and the two other teenagers in the Siberian city of Kangst were detained in the summer of 2020 previously for spreading leaflets in support of a Moscow mathematician and anarchist activist who was on trial for vandalism at that time. Now, these three put the leaflets on a local building of the FSB. If you don't know, FSB is basically the domestic security agency of Russia and the successor to the Soviet-era KGB. Now, police took their phones and said that they found an exchange about plans to blow up an FSB building that they had created in the popular game Minecraft. You take blocks, you build things, here we are. Now, according to investigators, these three were also learning how to make improvised explosive devices and practice detonating them in abandoned buildings. The teenagers initially faced more severe charges of, and I quote, participating in a terrorist organization, but the case was dropped due to lack of evidence. In the last words of the court, reported essentially by the local newspaper, Uvarov spoke about the pressure from authorities during the investigation and denied planning to blow anything at all up. He pleaded not guilty and said that if he is handed a real prison time, a real prison sentence, he will serve it, quote, with a clear conscience and dignity. For the last time in this court, I want to say, I am not a terrorist. Now, this is not the first time in recent years that young Russians have received prison sentences for controversial and preemptive terrorism charges, and the article goes on to list a whole bunch of those, but I think this is actually a really interesting thing. Obviously, we have real terrorism in the world. Essentially, we have also real cybercrime in the world, but all of those things have real world consequences, meaning a phishing attack has a real world consequence of you, let's say, losing your money or losing access to your data or disrupting your systems that you work on, therefore causing you some kind of physical duress or financial loss. The same with terrorism. You can lose a life, you can lose a building. We've seen some spectacular terrorism hits, and I don't mean spectacular in a good way, but massive terrorism hits. Look at ISIS, look at 9/11 and Al-Qaeda, all those kinds of things. But this is interesting because essentially the approach that the Russian judicial system, in this case, the prosecutors are taking, is that blowing up a building in Minecraft is tantamount to practice on blowing up the real thing. So it's not like the FSB owned this fake building in Minecraft and a whole bunch of players could use it and they blew up the fake building. What they're saying is that essentially these three teenagers built a fake FSB building to be modeled after the real building and then use that to plan essentially in the same way that, let's say, an actual terrorist organization might get the blueprints or architectural designs of a building to see where they are best strategically placing their bombs to level the building or whatever it is. Now, I think this opens up a lot of different questions in the sense that Minecraft is a game, but could it actually be used in this manner? Could you train motivated actual terrorists to do this? And the other question becomes, can a 16-year-old kid really become a terrorist if he or she isn't radicalized by a larger organization? Maybe they hate the government, and so blowing up a virtual FSB building is way better than them actually doing it in real person or attempting to do it real person. So maybe it's blowing off steam and you get that catharsis, all those kinds of things. I think there's a lot of questions that open up here. You could account virtual terrorism for things like theft of Bitcoin and all of that, but that has real world impact. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this. I think this is a really interesting case, which is why I'm bringing it up here. But virtual terrorism is apparently a real thing, and prosecutors, at least in Russia, are prosecuting for it. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.